Ethan Hayes checked his watch for the third time, wondering if he'd been stood up. The upscale cafe buzzed with the lunch crowd professionals grabbing quick meals between meetings. This was exactly the kind of place his assistant had suggested for what she'd insisted was an important meeting with someone who needs to thank you personally. At 34, Ethan was the CEO of Hayes Industries, a manufacturing company his grandfather had founded, which he'd modernized and expanded into green technology. He was successful, wealthy, and perpetually single, despite his assistant's increasingly creative attempts to set him up. When she'd mentioned this meeting, Ethan had assumed it was another thinly veiled blind date. He was considering leaving when a young woman approached his table. She was striking, with blonde hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, wearing a professional outfit, a cream blouse and red skirt that suggested she'd come from an office. But what truly caught Ethan's attention was her expression: nervous, emotional, yet determined. "Ethan Hayes?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "That's me," he replied. Standing automatically, "Are you my mystery appointment?" "I am," she said, extending her hand. "My name is Olivia Jenkins. Thank you for agreeing to meet me." As they sat down, Ethan studied her face, trying to place her. She looked vaguely familiar, but he couldn't identify where they might have met. "I have to be honest," Ethan said. "My assistant set this up and was very mysterious about it. She said someone needed to thank me personally, but I have no idea what for. Have we met before?" Olivia took a deep breath, and Ethan saw her eyes glisten with unshed tears. "We've met, though you wouldn't remember it. It was 10 years ago. I was and you saved my life." Ethan felt his heart skip. "I don't understand. 10 years ago? You were 24, just starting to take over your family's company." Olivia began. "It was late at night, raining, and you were driving home from the office. Do you remember stopping at a bridge?" A memory flickered, vague and distant. Ethan had tried to forget that night, had filed it away as one of those strange, intense moments that felt almost like a dream. "I remember stopping my car," he said slowly. "There was someone on the bridge railing." "That was me," Olivia said, tears now flowing freely. "I was 14 years old, and I was going to jump. I'd climbed up on the railing, and I was seconds away from letting go. Then you stopped your car and got out in the pouring rain." Ethan's memory sharpened. He remembered now a young girl in a school uniform, soaked through, standing on the wrong side of the railing. The terror he'd felt, the careful approach, the desperate attempt to talk her down. "You were just a kid," Ethan whispered. "You looked so small and scared." "I was terrified," Olivia admitted. "I'd been bullied mercilessly at school for 2 years. My parents were going through a bitter divorce and using me as ammunition against each other. I felt invisible and worthless, and I'd convinced myself the world would be better without me. That night, I decided to end it." She leaned forward, her hands clasped on the table. "Then you appeared, this stranger in an expensive suit, getting soaked in the rain, telling me that you understood what it felt like to be hopeless. Do you remember what you said to me?" Ethan thought back. "I told you that I'd felt the same way when I was young, that I'd lost my parents in a car accident when I was 16 and wanted to give up, that life had seemed unbearable until someone told me that pain is temporary, but death is permanent." "You talked to me for over an hour," Olivia said, standing in the rain, completely calm, like you had nowhere else to be. "You didn't lecture me or tell me my problems were small. You treated me like an adult, like my pain was real and valid. And finally, you said something that changed everything." "What did I say?" "You said, 'I don't know your name, and after tonight, we'll never see each other again. But I need you to know that your life has value. Even if you can't see it right now, someone somewhere needs you to survive tonight. Your future self needs you to be brave for just a little longer. Can you be brave for one more day? Just one?'" Ethan felt his throat tighten. He'd said those words because they were what someone had once said to him. Words that had kept him alive during his darkest moment. "I was brave for one more day," Olivia continued, "and then another, and another. You called the crisis hotline for me that night, waited with me until someone came. You made me promise to go to therapy, to give life one more chance. I remember," Ethan said quietly. "The counselor arrived, and you left in their car. I never knew what happened to you after that. I tried to follow up, but patient confidentiality meant I couldn't get information. I went into intensive therapy," Olivia said. "I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. My parents finally realized how serious things had gotten and stopped using me in their fight. I transferred schools, made new friends, learned to see myself differently. It wasn't easy or quick, but I survived because a stranger cared enough to stand in the rain and convince me my life was worth living. She pulled out her phone and showed him photos. I graduated high school with honors. Got accepted to Northwestern. Graduated last month with a degree in psychology. I'm starting a master's program in the fall to become a therapist for teens dealing with mental health crises because of you. Ethan looked at the photos of a confident young woman in a graduation gown, surrounded by smiling family, living a life that almost wasn't. Olivia, I'm so glad you survived, that you thrived, but I didn't do anything special. I just couldn't drive away. You did do something special, Olivia insisted, leaning close and lowering her voice so only he could hear. I'm just here to say thank you. Thank you for seeing me that night, for treating my pain as real, for giving me permission to be brave for just one more day. You gave me a life, Ethan. Every good thing that's happened since then exists because you stopped your car on that bridge. Ethan felt tears in his own eyes now. I'm so proud of you for fighting, for healing, for turning your pain into purpose. They talked for another hour. Olivia told him about her plans to work with at-risk teens, to be for others what he'd been for her. Ethan shared more of his own story, the grief and depression that had nearly consumed him after his parents died. The person who'd saved him, it was my grandfather, Ethan explained. He told me about losing his wife young, about how close he'd come to giving up. He said he survived by helping others, by turning his pain into purpose. That's why he built this company, to create jobs and opportunities for people who needed a second chance. And that's why you continued his legacy, Olivia said with understanding. I've tried, Ethan admitted. Though sometimes I wonder if I'm really making a difference or just making money. You made a difference to me, Olivia said firmly. The biggest difference possible. As they stood to leave, Olivia pulled an envelope from her bag. I wrote you a letter. I've actually written you dozens over the years, but never sent them because I didn't know how to find you. This one is different. Read it when you have time. After Olivia left, Ethan sat back down and opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, several pages long. Olivia detailed the past 10 years, the hard work of therapy, the moments she'd wanted to give up but remembered his words. The day she decided to become a therapist herself, she wrote about her graduation, her family healed and whole, her friends who'd become like family. But the final paragraph made Ethan's breath catch. You told me that someone somewhere needed me to survive that night? You were right. Last year, I was working a crisis hotline as part of my training. A girl called, 16 years old, standing on the same bridge where you found me. She was ready to jump. I talked to her for 90 minutes, and I used your words. I told her to be brave for one more day. She's alive because of what you taught me. Her survival is your legacy. I'm writing to tell you that the ripples from your kindness are still spreading, touching lives you'll never meet. Thank you for teaching me that one person can make all the difference. Ethan sat in that cafe long after closing time. The staff were too polite to ask him to leave. He called his assistant and asked how Olivia had found him. She tracked me down through LinkedIn. His assistant explained, said she'd been searching for you for years. When she told me the story, I knew you'd want to meet her. Was I wrong to set it up without telling you? No, Ethan said. You were absolutely right. That meeting changed something fundamental in Ethan. He'd been moving through life focused on business metrics and financial success, measuring his worth in quarterly reports. But Olivia's visit reminded him that real impact isn't always measurable in spreadsheets. He established a foundation through Hayes Industries focused on mental health support for teens and young adults. He funded crisis counseling programs, school mental health initiatives, and training for people like Olivia who were dedicating their lives to saving others. And he started volunteering at a crisis hotline himself, spending 2 nights a month talking to people in their darkest moments, passing on the words that had once saved him and that he'd passed to Olivia. 2 years after their reunion, Ethan was invited to speak at the opening of a new teen mental health center. The keynote speaker was Dr. Olivia Jenkins, now with her master's degree and already making waves in adolescent psychology. After their talks, they found themselves alone in the center's library. And Olivia said quietly, I need to tell you something. What's that? Ethan asked. When I tracked you down 2 years ago, it was just to say thank you. I didn't expect anything beyond that one meeting, but getting to know you, watching you take your own pain and turn it into this foundation, this center, watching you live the lesson you taught me, I've fallen in love with you. Ethan felt his heart race. Over the past 2 years, he'd found himself drawn to Olivia in ways he hadn't expected. Her strength, her compassion, Her absolute dedication to helping others, she embodied everything he valued. Olivia, you were 14 when we met? I don't want you to confuse gratitude with, I'm not confused. Olivia interrupted gently. I'm 24 now. Not 14. I've had therapy, relationships, a full life. My gratitude for what you did will never change, but what I feel now is different. I love who you are, not just what you did for me. I love you, too, Ethan admitted. I've been fighting it because I didn't want you to feel obligated. I'm not obligated. I'm choosing. There's a difference. They married a year later in a small ceremony at the mental health center they'd built together. Instead of a registry, they asked guests to donate to crisis prevention programs. And in their vows, both spoke about second chances and the responsibility of survival to honor the life you've been given by helping others find their own reasons to stay. 10 years after that wedding, Ethan and Olivia stood together at another bridge, the one where they'd first met. They were there for a memorial service, unveiling a plaque that read, "You are not alone. Your life has value. Be brave for one more day. Crisis hotline. Call anytime." Their daughter, 8 years old and named Hope, asked why they came to this bridge every year. Because this is where your daddy taught me to be brave, Olivia explained, and where I learned that one person caring enough to stop and listen can change everything. It's where I learned, Ethan added, that the most important thing we can do with our lives is show up for people in their darkest moments and remind them that darkness is temporary, but the choice to survive opens up infinite possibilities. Hope looked at the bridge, then at her parents. When I grow up, I want to help people be brave, too. You already do, Olivia said, hugging her daughter close. Every day you're alive, you remind us why survival matters. You're the proof that choosing life, even when it's hard, leads to more love than we can imagine. Because that's what Ethan had learned on a rainy night 24 years ago when he stopped his car for a suicidal teen. That we never know the full impact of our choices. That one moment of compassion can echo through decades, creating lives and love and purpose that ripple outward in ways we'll never fully comprehend. Olivia had come to say thank you, but in doing so, she'd reminded Ethan that his own survival had been worth it, that his grandfather's words about turning pain into purpose hadn't just saved him. They'd created a legacy of life that would continue long after both of them were gone. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that our darkest moments can lead to our greatest purpose and that one person caring can save a life, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about mental health, the power of compassion, and building legacies that matter. Comment below about a time someone's kindness gave you hope or about learning that survival is the bravest choice we can make. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to a crisis helpline. You matter. Your life has value, and the world needs you to be brave for one more day.